Have you ever wondered what would happen if the government understood not just what we do, but why we do it? I mean, what if public policy was designed with a really deep understanding of human psychology? Well, let's dive into that. Now, get this. This isn't some brand new idea. It's actually incredibly old. This quote here is from Herbert Simon, one of the founding fathers of modern public administration. And he wrote this way back in 1947. He was basically saying, look, if you want to understand how government works, you absolutely have to understand how humans think first. And that brings us to the big mystery, right? If a pioneer of the field was calling for this more than 70 years ago, why does it feel like we're only just now starting to pay attention? It's a puzzle that's been sitting at the heart of public administration for decades. And it wasn't just Simon. Other huge figures, like Dwight Waldo, they pointed out the exact same thing. They knew that people aren't always rational. We're driven by emotions, by mental shortcuts. But the study of government? It just kind of ignored all that. The call was being made, but it seems like no one was picking up the phone. Until now. A new field is finally answering that call that's been ringing for decades. It's called behavioral public administration, and it is all about connecting the inner workings of our minds with the outer workings of our government. So what exactly is it? Well, here's the formal definition, but really it's about zooming in. Instead of looking at the big picture, the giant institutions, it focuses on the micro level, the individual person. It uses the tools of psychology to analyze the behavior and attitudes of everyone involved, from citizens to public employees. This slide is perfect for explaining the difference. Think about it this way. Traditional public administration is like studying a building's blueprints. You're looking at the structure, the rules, the official design. But behavioral public administration, that's like studying how people actually live and work inside that building, where they take shortcuts, what they really care about, how they interact. You need both to get the full story. And you might be thinking, okay, cool theory, but this isn't just some niche academic idea anymore. The data shows it's a movement that's really picking up steam. That bond between psychology and public administration is finally getting stronger, and we can actually see it in the numbers. So let's look at the proof. In one of the top journals in the field, Public Administration Review, the share of articles that use psychology has more than quadrupled in just the last few years. Sure, it's still a small slice of the pie overall, but that trend line, it's shooting straight up. And it's not a fluke. Look at another top-tier journal, JPART. Here the trend is even stronger. Over 11% of all articles published in a 20-year span were informed by psychology. That shows this approach is becoming way more established. And just to really hammer the point home, a third major journal, Public Administration, shows the exact same pattern. The overall percentage is a little smaller, but the increase over time is consistent and statistically significant. Put it all together, and the evidence is pretty undeniable. So, what's the big takeaway from all these charts? It's simple, really. After being ignored for decades, the field is finally waking up to this old, powerful idea. The conversation that people like Simon and Waldo tried to start is finally happening. Okay, that's the theory and the data. But what does this actually look like in the real world? How does putting on a pair of psychology glasses really change how we see government? Let's dig into a couple of really fascinating examples. All right, let's start with an idea we all kind of take for granted. More government transparency is always a good thing, right? If the government just shows us what it's doing, we'll trust it more. It seems like pure common sense. But hold on. Psychology pushes us to ask a tougher question, because transparency doesn't just reveal the process, it reveals the choices. And let's be honest, sometimes those choices are really, really uncomfortable. And this is where we get a concept called the taboo trade-off. It suggests that when we as citizens see the government making a cold, hard calculation, like trading a sacred value like human life for a secular one like money, transparency can totally backfire. Seeing that trade-off makes us squirm, and it can actually lower our trust. So psychology adds this critical piece of nuance. Transparency isn't a magic wand. Okay, example number 2, there's a big, important theory in public administration called representative bureaucracy. And the core idea is pretty straightforward. If a government workforce, say a police department, looks like the community it serves, people will trust it more, just on a symbolic level. For the longest time, this was mostly just a big picture theory. But then, researchers used a classic experimental method from psychology to put it to the test. They showed people hypothetical police units where the only thing that changed was the gender diversity. And the results? They were crystal clear. The more representative team was seen as more trustworthy and fairer, especially by women. So in this case, psychology didn't challenge the old theory. It actually provided the hard individual-level evidence that proved it was right all along. So, we know this field is growing, and we know it has some seriously practical applications. The big question now is, what's next? Well, researchers have laid out a really clear 4-part agenda for the future. Here's the roadmap. First, they want to extend this scope, apply these insights to newer areas like e-government. Second, advance the methods, which means more training in rigorous experiments. Third, and this is cool, make it a two-way street. Public administration shouldn't just borrow from psychology, it should contribute back by testing theories in the real world. And finally, and this might be the most important one, increase its practical value. The goal is to create usable knowledge that actually helps people on the ground make better decisions. And that brings us right back to where we started, to the one question that's at the heart of this whole thing. After seeing how psychology can challenge our assumptions and confirm big ideas, we're left with this. If the government truly understood your psychology, the biases and motivations that make you tick, would you trust it more? It's something to think about.